Hey there, everyone. I'm Samuel Johnson, and welcome back to the MCU Perspectives. I apologize, I'm recording this very late at night. I was planning to record this earlier with Haley and Tim back at Haley's house, but unfortunately, unforeseen circumstances arose. We spent longer, the movie took longer than we thought it would. We watched some other stuff before it, and just general stuff. And we were gonna record this on the way. I was originally planning that it would be me and Haley recording this while we drove there, but I found it was kind of be a little complicated to record and drive at the same time, and there was a video, and it wasn't going well, so I just decided to scrap it and start fresh. And Haley is understanding, and I want to do a vlog with her and Tim in this in some point in the future, but for now it's not happening. So I'm just doing this vlog as me with just me. But so yeah. But anyway, today we're going to be discussing the sixth movie to be released as part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Avengers. And just like with the other solo films, I should probably talk about my personal history of the Avengers prior to seeing this movie. Like, my first exposure to the Avengers was, I guess I'm supposed to say it, the Ultimate Avengers. Like, it wasn't just them that introduced me to certain Marvel characters and so forth, but it was the Ultimate Avengers that introduced me to the Avengers as a whole. Sorry for a sec. Sorry about that. Anyway, so yeah, that it was the Ultimate Avengers film, and by extension, the next Avengers, that I got exposed to the Avengers as a whole, and learned more about certain characters that were in them, like Black Widow and Hawkeye and etc. But in the meantime, though, however, when I learned that they were going to be making, when came to the point of making a live action Avengers film, like when they hinted at it in the Incredible Hulk and Iron Man, I was super hooked on the idea. And I just thought to myself, if they made films with Iron Man and the Hulk, they gotta make films with the rest of the characters. And my original thought was that they were gonna be making movies about all the characters, like not just Iron Man and the Hulk, but like for Thor, for Captain America, for Black Widow, etc. But they managed to mitigate this by having Black Widow and Hawkeye appear in other people's movies, while other characters kind of other characters got more developed. Well, other characters, they didn't show up till later. So as for right now, just kind of keeping it to a few core members. So I was but the instant I learned they were going to be making this movie, I was just super excited. Every film building up to it was just another stepping stone to the Avengers, and I was just super hyped about it. And so when they finally released a trailer for it at the end of Captain America: The First Avenger, like at that point I was hooked. Like I was just it's like they already had my money. I wanted to go see it. So when it came out, I went and saw it. I freaking loved it. But and so after all these years, do I still think it's amazing? Well, short answer yes, but let's talk about the plot first. In terms of when this movie takes place, the film actually takes place about kind of sort of after the events of Thor. As in this case, as at the end of that film, in the post credit scene, we had Nick Fury approaching Dr. Selvig to study the Tesseract that the Red Skull was using in Thor. Not Thor, in Captain America. As such, this film kind of picks up with that as Nick Fury and his assistant Maria Hill, in her first appearance in the films, is called in to examine something because something's going up with the Tesseract, and in this case, apparently it's starting to act up. Nick Fury wants to know exactly what caused it to act up, and the thing is, nobody knows. It went up on its own, and they have no idea why. They even tried cutting power to their experiments, and since the Tesseract utilizes energy, it's unfortunately not working. It's unfortunately not. It just turns the power back on. They don't know what the heck's causing it, but a theory is thrown out by the head of this certain division, Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, who actually states that the Tesseract is a doorway to in the other end of the galaxy, And so his theory is, if it's a doorway, that doorways open up both ways, so that so that maybe someone from that end is trying to get over to them, and their theory is quickly proven right as the Tesseract activates and opens a portal, which something immediately comes out of, and that something is in fact Loki from the end of Thor, just as powerful as ever. He's carrying a staff with a strange blue gem embedded on the hilt, and upon arriving, he pretty much just curb stomps all of the shield agents that are there. And we also get to see him use his staff, and we learn that the staff has two strange abilities. One is that it can, when blasted, it can pretty much vaporize everyone in just a single blow. While, and if used up close, it can be used as a mind control device. Loki uses it on both Hawkeye and Dr. Selvig in all the chaos, and pretty much turns them into his own personal puppets. However, while this is going on, Fury managed to grab the Tesseract and tries to make a getaway, but Loki spots him and tells him to halt. Fury tries to talk Loki down, tell him that he's not going to make it, that he can't use this, that they need it, but Hawkeye, despite being under mind control, still kind of has the same mindset of an agent. And so, in this case, he actually states that he knows that Nick Fury's trying to stall because Nick Fury's noticed something, and that something is the portal that Loki came through is unstable and is slowly collapsing. And as such, Fury's just trying to keep Loki distracted enough for it to pretty much for the portal to overload and pretty much just bring the whole building down on top of Loki. As such, to try and make this just quick, Loki shoots Nick Fury, and they manage to they shoot Nick Fury, and they grab the Tesseract from him while he's on the ground. Fury ultimately survives because he was wearing padded armor under his suit, but in the midst of the chaos, Loki, Hawkeye, and the Doctor escape. Dr. Selvig, yeah, I'm trying to remember his name. And so, while Nick Fury is able to get out of the collapsing building, and Maria Hill managed to get out and find enough, but with Loki now on the loose with the Tesseract, they realize they need to pull out the A game. They need to pull out the big guns. Because with the Tesseract is a unlimited power source, and if the bad guys get their hands on it, and if someone like Loki gets their hands on it, it can lead to utter chaos. And so they decide they need to call in the Avengers. And it starts out with Black Widow, as we see her in Russia being interrogated. Well, it turns out she's actually interrogating them, as they think that she's vulnerable, so they're giving out their biggest secrets. And she manages, and when they end up calling her on the job and tell her that Hawkeye's been captured, and as she hears that, she breaks free and takes them all down. And she's immediately sent to go recruit Bruce Banner, who has gone to India, I think, to pretty much just help heal people and make them better. And she managed to get the help of a local kid to trick Bruce into coming to a meeting spot by having the kid say that her dad is sick, and so Bruce will go out to see him. She managed to convince him to come with them, though in this case they're not after Bruce because he's the Hulk. They want Bruce because of what he has as Bruce, his scientific genius and so forth. Plus, they make it clear on no certain terms that Bruce really doesn't have a choice in the matter. Because apparently they have agents surrounding the house that they're meeting in. Natalie has a gun on standby if things get rough. Pretty much it's pretty much just that it'll be a lot easier if Bruce just concedes, which Haley was going to point out, but she's not here right now, so it falls to me to say that. But in the meantime, they also call their other remaining members. In this case, Captain America and Iron Man. As we see Cap in a gym, as we see him pretty much fighting the sandbag, like in the trailer at the end of Captain America. And we see him kind of having PTSD flashbacks of World War II, him going in the ice, etc., before knocking the sandbag so hard that it falls off its hinges, and him having to put up a new one. But Nick Fury comes in and gives him and tells him that he has a mission for him that they need his help, giving him a folder which has files on the Tesseract as well as Hydra. And knowing just how dangerous the Tesseract is, Captain America does not raise any question. Immediately accepts the mission without hesitation. As for Iron Man, we see him putting an arc reactor in the power coils leading to a new building that he's acquired that it's just called Stark Tower. pretty much with the arc reactor he's plugging in, it's pretty much cut off from the grid, so that it's pretty much self-sustaining for about a year at best. However, as he and Pepper are celebrating it, Phil Coulson comes up and alerts Tony to what's going on. Apparently, Pepper has been getting friendly with Coulson in the meantime, so she actually is on a first name basis with him. And while Tony doesn't actually say yes to helping Coulson with whatever the problem is, he doesn't say no, and Pepper does tell Tony does decide to leave Tony alone because they were in the middle of having like a romantic in the middle of having a romantic moment, which Coulson interrupted. So she decides to step away and let them kind of talk. But in the meantime, though, Loki and his followers have kind of set up their own little lab where they're trying to they're trying to hook the Tesseract up to a new device. Essentially, it's a device that's supposed to refine the portal that Loki came through, so that it doesn't collapse in on itself like it did with him. But while they're doing this, we see Loki using his powers to reach out across time and space and meet the people that he's working with. And in this case, it's a race of aliens called the Chitauri. Pretty much what he's doing is that he's come to Earth on their behalf to use the Tesseract to open a portal to allow the Chitauri to invade. And the reason he's helping them is because, one, they were able to... Their master, as they say, had found... Well, they don't say this, but it's implied that his master found Loki after he fell from Asgard and saved him, so Loki kind of owes him. And they also state that when they invade, Loki will be made ruler of Earth, so yeah, at least Loki wants to be king of Earth at this point. So it's kind of if you don't do it, you're dead. If you do it, rewards are great, so to speak. But unfortunately for Loki, the device that they needs some kind of... Haley worded it best. I forgot what it was specifically. But essentially needs an element that's supposed to help them pierce through the gateway between... across time and space. That'll make it easier to work through. Pretty much make it a bit more pretty much make it so that allow the device to keep the portal open without having it collapse and burn out. And it's an element called iridium that, unfortunately, the most viable source is located in a private vault of a rich guy in Germany. As such, and so Hawkeye is able to coordinate a plan to try and get into the vault and get the iridium. While in the meantime, Captain America and Bruce Banner are brought out to a aircraft carrier out in the ocean. Where Cap's introduced to Black Widow and Cap and Bruce Banner now formally meet, and it's revealed that this carrier is actually the Shield helicarrier, as it immediately takes off and starts flying, which I think it does get everyone amazed. And a nice little funny thing is that Nick Fury made a bet with Cap that he said nothing would surprise him anymore. He said $10 that he's wrong, and just seeing the helicarrier, and when Cap sees Fury again, he gives him the $10 he owes him, which I thought was cute. But pretty much, yeah, Tony is Cap is pretty much supposed to be made the... They inform Cap, Bruce, and Black Widow. Sorry, that's a later movie. Black Widow about the whole situation with Loki, and that they need to they need to get the Tesseract away from him, and he's the only one that knows. They need to get the Tesseract away from him, and Fury states that the reason he brought Bruce on is because his work with gamma and gamma radiation is almost second to none. So he wants Bruce to use that knowledge to find a way to track the Tesseract, since it radiates some slight gamma radiation, and so they can use that to track it. And while Bruce is still a little hesitant to do that, he does agree. He does ultimately agree. He does ultimately concede and does help out. Actually, that's right. He already agreed. Never mind. Sorry. But yeah, that's exactly what they brought him on for. Not the Hulk, though. They make it clear it's kind of clear that they do have precautions in place in case the Hulk does come out, so to speak. In the meantime, though, we cut to Germany as we see the plan coming to fruition. And pretty much the plan is that Loki sneaks into this guy's house while there's a party going on, and pretty much he uses his illusion magic to create a disguise for himself that allows him to get close to the guy and jab something in his eye that it's implied to just rip the eye apart and pretty much condense and use the particles to create a holographic copy of the eye that Hawkeye is, Hawkeye is able to use to fool a scanner that leads to the lock where they can get the iridium. But immediately upon getting it, Loki sorry. But after doing that, Loki drops the disguise and just goes out onto the street, and then just kind of, I'm just gonna say it, raises hell as he blows up a vehicle and gets a bunch of people and pretty much herds a bunch of people there and pretty much forces them to kneel for him, saying that talking about isn't this a natural state? You were born to be subjugated, yada yada yada. But one German old guy says that we've seen your kind before and we're not gonna bow you again. And Loki says there, I assure you, there's no one like me. And but the old guy says there are always people like you. And so Loki tries to make this old guy an example by annihilating him with his staff. But when the instant he tries, Captain America jumps in the way, and manages to block the blast of the shield. And then we see him now in a more updated uniform. And I'm still sorry to say it. I think the uniform looks stupid. And I'll say that about every Captain America uniform, but thankfully, like with the other two, it manages to get by because it's worn by a badass guy, so the suit, so you can give it a pass. As such, with Cap there, he starts. Black Widow comes in as support in a fighter jet, but Loki isn't bowing, and he even tries shooting the jet out of the sky. So he and Captain America get into a fight. But in the middle of the fight, someone hacks into the jet's radio and starts playing AC/DC over it, and that person is in fact Iron Man, as he flies in and blasts Loki into the asphalt and just holds him up at repulsor blast and tells him to stay down, and Loki concedes and surrenders. As such, Iron Man and Cap take Loki and put him onto the jet, and they fly back to the SHIELD helicarrier. Though as they're flying, Steve makes a comment how he felt that Loki went down a little too easy. Like this guy, what this guy did, they think that he thinks maybe that something's a little up. However, as they're traveling, the jet seems to be hit with strange lightning and thunderstorms, which seem to get Loki freaked out. And of course, they're wondering if it's freaking out. It's the next part that I think gets to me. And suddenly we see the source of this lightning as Thor breaks open the back of the jet, knocks Iron Man aside when he tries to stop him, and then grabs Loki and flies off. At that, immediately Iron Man, without them forming a plan, Iron Man jumps out of the jet and flies after him, and Cap grabs a parachute and jumps out after them. At least I think he grabs a parachute. In the meantime, Thor is here, and it's stated by Loki that apparently they managed to get him there via dark magics. So the Rainbow Bridge hasn't been fixed yet, so that's going to be a pro. So they only managed to get here by using another method. But in the meantime, though, Thor is here for kind of two reasons. One, he wants to know where the Tesseract is, because, well, same reason as everyone else, the Tesseract is a very powerful source of energy, and they can't just let it fall into anyone's hands. And the second reason is, well, he wants to bring his brother home. Because he still sees Loki as his brother. They grew up together, they were family, and while Loki is still bitter about everything on Asgard, because he still thinks that Thor is considered the better son, while he's just the outcast, the son of a frost giant that just got brought into the family out of pity, who probably never had a spot on the throne. Thor keeps trying to tell him otherwise, but at the same time, he realizes that Loki isn't budging, and so he tries to get to know where the Tesseract is. But before he and Loki continue further, Iron Man flies right into him and knocks him into some woods. And the heroes. I forgot to mention Cap and Iron Man are chasing after Thor because, well, Loki is the only one that knows what the Tesseract is, and if Thor takes him away or kills him, then they won't know where it is. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the reason they were able to track down Loki was because of Bruce. So yeah, that's a thing. Sorry, probably should have mentioned that. But immediately gets into a hostile fight between between Iron Man and Thor, and it's actually a really cool fight as you see them flying around, Thor blasting Iron Man, thinking he'd stop him, but Thor's lightning just charging Iron Man's armor, which he used to blast back, them flying around, them trying to blast each other, and Thor constantly knocking him aside, throwing his hammer. It's all really cool and really fun to watch until eventually Captain America arrives at the scene and tries to calm both of them down. So, and he tells Thor to put the hammer down, but Thor, still kind of in battle mode, says, "Okay," he's like, "Want me to bring it down? Sure, I'll bring it down." And he tries to slam the hammer down on Cap, but Cap managed to block it with his shield, and since the shield is made of vibranium, it instead just caused a massive shockwave that just spreads out across the whole area. At which point, Thor realizes that it's pointless to fight these guys, and so they kind of call a temporary truce. As such, Thor, rather than allowing them to just take or rather than Thor allowing the Cap and Iron Man to take Loki back to Helicarrier, here comes with them, and explains how Loki is his brother and explains how Loki is his brother and so forth, and he wants the Tesseract, and he wants to bring Loki home. But when they're back in the Helicarrier, Tony just immediately takes control of everything as he just kind of owns the room, knowing what everybody's doing, getting everyone's secrets and lowdown, and they kind of inform Thor they pretty much inform Thor about how things are going down, while also locking Loki in a new cell. This case with walls that are super strong walls that it's implied. They make it no secret that this place is a prison for the Hulk if things ever got out of hand, because the walls are meant to be impenetrable, and the instant that the walls are broken, the cage will just drop. So pretty much Loki is kind of stuck there. But as they're kind of organizing all this, they kind of realize they need to still find the Tesseract, and so as such, the groups kind of split off into their own little. They kind of all split off, with Bruce and Tony kind of going off doing the science stuff, since they're the brains. Cap kind of doing his own thing, while Black Widow tries to get more information on what Loki's endgame is, and pretty much. However, Tony makes it clear that he thinks that something's because at one point, Captain walks in on them with Tony kind of zapping Bruce. We used to see how much control he has over his anger, which Cap immediately kind of calls him out on because, well, Hulk. But Tony states that he thinks that Nick Fury is hiding something, and he set a little Trojan horse inside S.H.I.E.L.D. system, so that in a few hours he'll know everything that S.H.I.E.L.D. knows, so he wants to know what's going on. Cap thinks that this is preposterous, that they wouldn't be hiding anything, but when Tony looks at Bruce and asks for his output, yeah, Bruce even thinks the same thing, because why would he bring Tony on board for this? Why would he bring Tony on board? Because apparently, to open the portal, they need a massive energy source, aka an arc reactor. So why would they have Tony so massively involved in this when he could easily be working on it on his end? So something's going on that they want to know about. Cap tries brushing it off and leaves, but yeah, the thought is still nagging in his head. And so he goes off to investigate the Helicarrier to find if there is anything that they're hiding. In the meantime, we have some nice character bits throughout the ship, as we have Thor actually meeting up with Coulson and them talking about talking about Loki, how much of a pest he's being, etc. So about Bruce, we see conversation between Bruce and Tony as they're just kind of having a nice little conversation. And we have a nice little moment where Tony says that he thinks that when all the action starts that Bruce will be fighting alongside them, which even Bruce thinks won't be happening. Though Tony says that he thinks that the Hulk saved him, because with all the gamma radiation he absorbed, he should have died, and yet instead he turns into a big green monster. But things are still going to a head when we have our conversation when we have our scenes with Thor, with Nick Fury, and Black Widow and Loki. As Nick Fury also through conversations realizes what kind of has the idea that maybe Loki's the only person on the ship that actually wants to be here himself. But Black Widow goes to question Loki, and she kind of reveals her backstory and history with Clint, aka Hawkeye. As I already mentioned that, sorry. It turns out that Black Widow's skills, or the skills she has now, she didn't acquire as a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. Originally, she was kind of an assassin for hire. She had these skills and could use them to hurt and kill whatever she wanted. And it got her a big name, but it also got her on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s radar. They sent Hawkeye out to a set to get rid of her and kill her, but Hawkeye instead offered her a chance to work with S.H.I.E.L.D., and she took him up on the chance, and, well, she pretty much owes him for that. However, Loki tries using this to his advantage to try and get to Black Widow, stating that he's going to have Hawkeye kill her and do all these horrible things to her and only let him wake up long enough to see what he's done. And then so when Black Widow seems to react to this and calls Loki a monster, he says that you let the real monster on board. And she straightens out and realizes that Loki's plan is to unleash the Hulk. However, at that point, though, as Tony and Bruce are doing their work, Nick Fury kind of comes in and starts questioning Stark about about his virus, because at that point it's been detected in S.H.I.E.L.D. servers. And Tony says he wants to know exactly what they're doing. But Cap comes walking in and drops something down, and it turns out it's one of Hydra's weapons from Captain America: The First Avenger. It turns out that this is what the secret was. It turns out that they were working on something called, throughout the film up to this point, they've mentioned here and there something called Phase 2. They mentioned it, with the Tesseract when he was going haywire to move the stuff from Phase 2 somewhere else, about Phase 2 planning and so forth. Just all these little things popped up. And it turns out that what Phase 2 is pretty much weaponizing the power of the Tesseract. Phase 1 was trying to utilize it as a power source. Phase 2 was to weaponize it like Hydra did. And as such, they've taken the weapons and been using them as bases so that they can try and find ways to replicate them. Then, of course, everyone wants to know exactly why the hell he's doing this, and Nick Fury points to Thor. And the reason he's saying this is because Thor, he doesn't blame Thor, he doesn't say that Thor himself is the problem. Thor is a good guy. But his appearance back in New Mexico pretty much alerted the Earth that there are bigger threats out there. Thor is a good guy. But what if the next person that comes to Earth isn't so good? It's probably just as powerful as Thor, but doesn't care about any of the populace and just wants to destroy and kill. They think they need something to fight that back, and that's where the Tesseract and those weapons come in. And of course, Cap thinks it's a stupid idea, but at this point they're starting to get a bit of infighting between the group, as Captain is angry at Tony because Tony is kind of being very callous and doesn't seem to care and doesn't seem to really care about anything. He's just kind of doing his own thing, and Cap thinks that he doesn't deal with he doesn't know how to make a hard sacrifice, that if it's him and someone else on the wire, what's he going to do? And Tony's response would be he just cut the wire altogether. And that he wouldn't be able to make the tough, because Cap thinks he wouldn't be able to make the tough sacrifices. Black Widow comes in and starts being confrontational with Bruce because she thinks that Loki already got to him. And Bruce is, of course, is actually being defensive and so forth. And so Thor is, of course, thinking that Thor's getting impatient as well because he's thinking that they're wasting their time with all this. And we just keep getting all this more tension rising between each member of the group. And I think one of my favorite lines, and it's just really not, and as they're doing this though, we see the Loki staff, because that was brought to Tony and Bruce's lab, starts pulsating, and we soon learn that Loki's plan today was kind of was kill two birds with one stone. His plan was not only was this to get the iridium, but he was aware of S.H.I.E.L.D. and what they were going to do. I'm guessing thanks to Hawkeye. And so he let himself be willingly captured so that his agents could use the staff as a tracker, so they could find the helicarrier and take it down with all the people that could stop Loki inside. As such, as the group is arguing and tensions continue rising as Tony and Cap actually start talking about how they could take each other in a fight, that Hawkeye shoots off an explosive arrow and manages to use wind resistant flight to aim it right at one of the turbines in the helicarrier, and causing it to explode, which causes the whole thing to go out when the arrow explodes. At which point, everyone has to get into battle positions as Tony and Cap run off, and in the explosion, Black Widow and Bruce are thrown down a shaft, and Bruce is starting to get a little freaked out, and Black Widow tries calling him around saying that she'll get him out of here to do all this, but whatever Bruce's secret is to keep him from turning the Hulk, it clearly isn't working, because even if he does have a way of keeping his weight under control, because they have talked about how he's been able to keep himself under control, this is being jolted like that is a high adrenaline situation, and yeah, he turns into the Hulk. Immediately, as she's turning, Black Widow tries getting herself free from a piece of debris that seems to be crushing her. But by the time she gets free, Bruce is already transformed into the Hulk, and with all the hostility that's been going around, the instant the Hulk sees Black Widow, he just zeroes in on her to pretty much just, well, let's just say give her the biggest bitch slap of a lifetime. In the meantime, though, there's just absolute carnage going on throughout the rest of the ship as Cap and Tony are trying to find a way to, get the propeller that was knocked out by Loki's agents back up and running, while Thor, as Black Widow is trying to run away from from Hulk. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of names mixed up. And eventually, she does get cornered by the Hulk before he can deliver that bitch slap. Suddenly, Thor comes in and knocks him aside, and we get a really kick-ass fight between Thor and the Hulk, as we see them constantly battling and clashing and just going at it. It's a really cool fight, but at the same time, more of Loki's agents are going into the helicarrier trying to sabotage him from the inside and manage to break Loki out of prison and try and even get to Loki to break him out. But in the middle of all this, Agent Coulson has go into a little area where they could get a weapon, and as Thor is fighting Loki, it eventually I'm getting so mixed up. As Thor is fighting the Hulk, eventually someone in a ship sees all the commotion that's going on with Thor and the Hulk because it's causing a lot of excess damage to the ship, and tries opening fire on the Hulk. And all that does is get the Hulk to turn towards him and start jump at him and eventually knock them down, and eventually cause the whole thing to crash. And pretty much cause the whole thing to crash with the Hulk falling off the helicarrier. In the meantime, though, Thor tries to go to Loki's cell to try and find him, and he sees the cell opening with Loki about to step out, but when he tries to hit Loki to try and knock him back in the cell, it turns out that the Loki saw stepping out was an illusion, and Thor ends up flying into the cell as the door closes, with Loki looking at him saying, well, are you just gonna how many times are you gonna fall for that? And in the meantime, though, as Loki's taunting him, Coulson comes in with this weapon, and apparently it was based off the destroyer that Loki sent after Thor. And at this point, it's untested, and he doesn't know what it'll do. But as Coulson is holding Loki at gunpoint, he's suddenly stabbing behind him. As we see that the Loki that Coulson was pointing at was just another illusion. And of course, Thor sees this and just immediately starts trying to break out of his cell, and Loki immediately ejects the cell and causes it to fall down to Earth. In the meantime, though, Iron Man and Captain America have been able to get the turbine up and running, and after evading through some more of Loki's agents, they managed to get Iron Man out of there without too much damage. But by this time, they realize they're kind of screwed. As while Coulson was able to blast Loki, give one last blast to Loki with the weapon, Coulson is pretty much dying, and Loki and his agents have escaped. However, they do achieve one small victory, as in all this, Black Widow did manage to catch up with Hawkeye, and the two managed to get into a one-on-one fight with Black Widow coming out as the victor, as she knocks Hawkeye into some metal handrails that seem to knock him to his senses, though to be sure, Black Widow knocks him out. As such, Loki managed to escape again, and even managed to grab his staff on the way out. And unfortunately, at this point, they're kind of in shambles, as two of their biggest hitters are now gone. And at this point, and with Coulson's death, they're all pretty much just the remaining Tony and Cap are just not exactly in the best of moods. With especially extenuated when Nick Fury brings out a bunch of vintage Captain America cards that Coulson had and wanted Cap to sign, and throws them on there. And apparently he apparently had them on his person when he died and wanted Cap to sign them. And well, he never got the chance. As such, Tony kind of steps away to the cell, to where they were keeping the cell, and he starts wondering what exact, and he's just kind of trying to, and he's just trying to take all this in with Coulson's death. Cap starts looking at it from a more militaristic point of view, that he's just a loss that they have to keep going, but Tony is still just getting more emotional about this and just how he killed him, that they can't do this, but Cap gets his mind back on it by saying that at the end of the day, they need to focus on Loki, because he still has the Tesseract, and with whatever he's doing, they need to figure it out. They need to stop him. And, oh yeah, something I forgot to figure out. They were able. Yeah, that's it. Sorry, that's what I forgot to mention. Earlier on, Thor actually did explain what Loki's plan was. That the Tesseract was a doorway between worlds, and that Loki was planning to use it to unleash an army on the world. So they do know what his plan is, and that they need the power source, and that he needs some sort of power source to power the portal. As such, but as Tony and Cap are talking, Tony's able to put the pieces together and realizes that Loki could have just killed them at any time, and yet he waited till now. Why did he do that? Like, they're obviously threats, he needed to get rid of them, of course, but why do this in such a way? And Tony realizes that Loki was trying to do it in a more spectacular way. He wanted all eyes on him for this. As such, he realizes that for whatever he's planning, he's probably going to go for just as much of a spectacle, and he realizes the only place that Loki can be right now is most likely Stark Tower, as that has not only has he all the energy they need for the portal, but it's so big, it's such a big spectacle that they would be able that obviously Loki would probably put all his stock there. As such, Black Widow is there when Hawkeye wakes up, and while he is strapped in, and yeah, he's strapped down for safety measures, but thankfully the knock to the head has managed to wake him up and bring him back to his senses. As such, Black Widow is able to release him, and he's ready to go up against Loki for what Loki did to him. And of course, everyone else is ready to go up against Loki because of what happened to Coulson, and Black Widow especially because, well, Clint's her friend, and she doesn't want to. Clint's her friend. As such, Iron Man makes a few repairs to his suit, though it's kind of junk though it's not exactly at its peak form at this time. Cap gets his suit ready as Black Widow and Hawkeye get all necessary equipment, and they all head out to New York, realizing that that's where Loki is. However, as they're leaving, we see that Maria Hill confronts Fury and states that the cards weren't on Coulson's person when he died, meaning that Fury put them there. And Fury says, yeah, they just needed that last push. And yeah, I keep glancing over moments. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of a bit out of it. It's late, and I'm still a little disappointed that this blog didn't go exactly as I would have wanted it to, so I'm sorry. But one moment that I forgot to mention, and also part of the last minute thing, I don't have my notes, is my phone, again, has my notes, and I'm using it as a light, so I'm sorry for all these technical difficulties, I really am. But anyway, Fury actually stated that part of the reason why he wanted to set up the Avengers initiative is because he didn't put all his eggs in the Tesseract weapons planning. That he felt that if they had a team of people that could help them out, they had a good team of people, then they would be good enough to fight back any threat, and that's why he wanted to set up the Avengers initiative. To get people like that to get people like that to be on the front lines and deal with any threats that when they come by. So yeah, again, so that's part, and so really again that last push was Coulson's death. That's what they'd avenge, and that's what they can avenge. And the cards were just kind of the final push. As such, Captain America, Black Widow, and Hawkeye take a jet to New York while Tony flies in his suit. In the meantime, Thor managed to actually get free from the cell before it crashed to Earth by breaking out, and He eventually managed to find where Mjolnir landed, and after some hesitation, wondering if he's worthy enough or not because of how things are going, does pick it up. And then we cut back to Bruce, who is transformed back to who, upon crashing, transformed back to normal, and was met by a janitor or whatever building he crashed in. The janitor gave him some new pants and gave him some new clothes that he could wear when he's back to normal. However, things continue going down. As such, Tony managed to get to Stark Tower first, and we see Hold on a sec. Dr. Selvig, that's who's working on it. We see him making some final adjustments to the portal to the device that they hooked the Tesseract up to. And while Tony tries to talk him into turning it off, he's still under Loki's mind control, so no, he's not really willing. And unfortunately, the device is shielded is shielded. It's got an energy shield up, so it can't be destroyed and can't be interacted with. And so they realize that if they want to take this down, they got to go to the source. As such, Tony goes to the main floor, the docking entrance, where he can go in to get it, where he can fly in and get his suit removed. And he managed to talk to Jarvis and get pretty much a Mark another suit ready, the Mark 7 as it's called, up and already. But while he tries to distract Loki. As such, he starts talking to Loki, and he tells Loki about how much he's kind of pissed them off, that he's got a bunch of all these people angry at him, and that all of them are ready to hurt him. Loki thinks is just so superior, thinking, I'm better than you. I can easily take down any threat you get. I can easily take down anything you throw my way. But Tony says that pretty much emphasizes, no, you don't get it. You're screwed here. There is absolutely nothing. There's absolutely no way that you are going to come out of this smelling like a fresh daisy. Because even if by some miracle he wins, if his forces do outnumber the Avengers, at the very least, if they can't save the Earth, they're going to avenge it. So he makes it clear that on no certain terms, Loki is screwed. Loki then tries to use a staff on Tony to try and get, thinking that whatever's going to happen, he's going to need to distract the rest of the Avengers by turning Tony on them, at least turning one of their own. But unfortunately, his staff is stopped by Tony's chest plate. As such, he just knocks Tony aside, and Tony's able to put some wristbands on him that can register the suit to him. And so as he and Loki are tussling, Loki throws him out the side of the Stark Tower, but he already managed to get the suit launched out. And it pretty much affixes itself to Tony and puts on his new Iron Man suit. In the meantime, though, Thor arrives on the scene as the portal activates and the Chitauri start flying out. As such, Loki and Thor are just kind of having their own fight, and in the middle of the fight, Thor tells Loki, "Oh, are you seeing this? Is this what you wanted and everything?" And Loki has pretty much made it clear that he's pretty much gone off the deep end. This is exactly what he wants. He doesn't care how he wins. He's going to win. And in the middle of the fighting, he decides to make a quick getaway by jumping off the side of Stark Tower onto a flying motorcycle, which he uses. In the meantime, though, Captain America, Iron Man, and Black Widow and Hawkeye are doing everything they can to take down the varying Chitauri as they flood into New York, and it just becomes a lot of New York just suddenly becomes a battle zone, war zone. As the Chitauri are flying all over the place, as all the heroes are trying to keep track of them, they keep blasting at them, knocking them out of the sky, shooting them with their guns, bullets, with whatever weapons they can drop. It's just kind of a giant brawl. It's just really fun to watch, and it gets even bigger, and it gets even greater when the Chitauri send through this giant behemoth creature that it acts kind of like a battleship and a tank all in one, as it releases more Chitauri soldiers, flies right through buildings, and Tony manages to shoot missiles at it to get its attention, and it follows him. But they're just going all over the place. And Thor, in the meantime, has been trying to fend them off too, and they're realizing that they're kind of stuck as the group kind of descends in one area. But eventually, as this all goes on, Bruce starts coming along, petering along on a motorcycle, and as they're trying to realize and as the group is kind of assembling, and they realize they need to take them down, Tony comes flying with a big monster, saying that he's going to bring the party to them. And so as it's coming, as he flies out of the way, this thing is still charging at the group, and so Bruce starts walking up to it, and Captain America, until Cap says, "I think it's the time for you to get angry," and Bruce reveals a secret about why he has been able to prevent any episodes, as it were. He's always angry. And so we see him turn towards the giant behemoth and just transform into the Hulk and punch it. And it is such a kick-ass scene. Hold on one sec. Sorry about that. No more distractions now. As such, with the team now fully assembled, we get a nice group shot as they're surrounded by Chitauri, and everyone's just getting ready for battle. And so they all start coordinating as Hawkeye and Iron Man scope out buildings to take out any air forces that are coming around, especially when more of those giant behemoths come through the portal. And then after that, we have Black Widow and Captain America staying on the ground so that they can keep track of battle forces. Thor is sent up to try and kind of bottleneck the portal so that no more big creatures come in, and Cap just orders the Hulk to smash. And we see this giant and this just leads to this giant kick-ass battle as we see the Avengers just going around taking out the Chitauri wherever they go. We see Thor shooting lightning at them as they fly through the portal. We see all these we see Captain America and Black Widow fighting them on the ground. We see the Hulk smashing down these giant monsters, and eventually Thor comes in to help them as they knock it to the ground. We see Hawkeye just keep blasting them, shooting them with arrows left and right. You imagine to shoot one towards Loki, which Loki catches, but it's an explosive arrow, so it blows up right in his face. And it eventually ends with him landing right back on Stark Tower with the Hulk coming up to get him. And Loki tries to intimidate the Hulk, saying that, you are nothing, I'm a god. In the middle of it, the Hulk just grabs him and just starts knocking him around like he's a rag doll. It is just so damn fun. It is such a cool fight scene. It is just so great and fun to watch, and it is just kick-ass, and it's just really nice. But in the midst of all this fighting, though, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been monitoring it, and I think, and something I forgot to mention is that Nick Fury actually has bosses. Like, these are higher ups, like a council of some kind. Pretty much, they're the guys up and they're the guys above the guy in charge who kind of keep everything who kind of make some of the bigger decisions, and pretty much seeing how things are going, they want to unleash a nuke on New York to take them out. Nick Fury puts the kibosh on this because the Avengers seem to have everything handled, but they pretty much pull rank on him and go right to the pilots and say that they're the ones in charge now, and they want him to these two pilots, and they want them to unleash 2 nukes on New York. Then Nick Fury manages to intercept these things, and he manages to shoot one of the planes before it can go anywhere, the engine, so that the pilots don't get killed. But the other still manages to go off and shoots off the nuke towards New York. In the meantime, though, Black Widow manages to get to where the portal is going on, and in all the chaos, all the energy, Dr. Selvig has actually managed to be knocked out of Loki's mind control, but he's realizing, and so it turns out that even in his mind-controlled state, he was trying to find ways to take down Loki, and he apparently found a way, and it turns out he put in a failsafe, especially in the portal, that if something of the same power as the Tesseract was used on it, then they could breach the device and close the portal so that no more Chitauri can come through. However, of course the best thing they can do that is Loki's staff, and Loki pretty much dropped it when the Hulk used him as a ragdoll. As such, Black Widow goes to get it and is about to use it on the machine, but Iron Man tells her don't do that as he got a call from Fury warning about the nuke, and so he said they need to get the nuke out of there. As such, the remaining Avengers do their best to hold off all the rest of the Chitauri so they can't come through, while Iron Man manages to fly up and grab the missile. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. No excuses, just sorry. But yeah, Iron Man manages to grab the nuke and manages to fly it through New York right through the portal. But unfortunately, it seems clear that this might be a one-way street because it's a portal directly into space on the other side of the universe. It could be a one-way trip, especially since once he says they get it through, that they need to close the portal because in that way New York's no longer in danger from the nuke. As such, as they're flying, Tony tries to make one more call to Pepper, who's seeing all the carnage on the news, but unfortunately, all this, she doesn't get Tony's phone call, or she misses it. So, unfortunately, pretty much Tony is able to shoot the missile through the portal into space, and upon doing that, well, the suit kind of has a shutdown, as the suit can only handle so much, but this is space, and Tony's managed to fix the freezing problem. Out here, there's nothing. As such, the suit kind of shuts down, and Tony, from lack of oxygen, actually kind of falls unconscious. But thankfully, when he threw the missile up, it managed to hit the main Chitauri ship and cause it to blow up. And somehow, this causes the remaining Chitauri to die off. We didn't figure out what it was either. It could be that they're all part of a singular hive mind. Destroying the ship caused them all to fail. It could easily be that. It could easily be that somehow it was linked to their armor, or maybe they were just drones and that was what was in charge. One more thing. Sorry, I am not pausing this. Sorry, I'm trying to keep this door closed. But bottom line, destroying the ship pretty much caused all the Chitauri that came flying through the portal to just immediately drop dead, including all those giant things that came through to just fall to the ground, just crash. As for Tony, and as such, once that happens, they used Loki's staff to shut down the portal device and to shut down the Tesseract, the portal device, and close the portal. And thankfully, Iron Man managed to fall through the portal just before it closes completely, and just before the explosion of the ship hits him. As such, as he's falling to Earth, the Avengers see that he's not slowing down, but before Thor can go save him, the Hulk managed to jump out and grab him and bring him to the ground, though he doesn't seem to be moving. Although this is resolved rather quickly, as the Hulk lets out a roar that actually manages to jolt Tony back awake. He's clearly freaked out, and he's looking around and asking what's going on, and they reveal that, yeah, they won. As such, he says it's a good job everyone, that they should have an off day, get some shawarma, but they say there's still one more thing they need to take care of, which Tony immediately agrees that is right. And so they go back to Stark Tower, where Loki's starting to recuperate, and they immediately all corner Loki and get ready, and they immediately all corner Loki. As such, the rest of the film kind of has you dealing with the fallout from what happened there. Has them dealing with the fallout from the film, as we see everyone reacting to the Avengers. Some thinking that this is their mess, while others saying they saved them from the mess. And we see people idolizing them, saying that they saved their lives. We even see our Stan Lee cameo as they're interviewing him about the existence of these heroes, and he says, "Superheroes in New York? Give me a break." But pretty much the impact is clear. The Avengers have made their mark, and they are here to stay. And as such, Nick Fury's telling the higher-ups that he doesn't know where the Avengers are, and he thinks they deserve a well-deserved break. And so the film ends with Thor taking the Tesseract and Loki and using the Tesseract to get them both back to Asgard, while Bruce and Tony kind of go off in their own little car to go off and hang out, to just go and do their own thing, while Cap gets on a motorcycle and drives off. And the last scene we see officially of the film is Tony and Pepper in Stark Tower, as they're building up new plans to repair it, and as the scene backs off, we see that most of the Stark names are taken off, and all that's left is the A. So, yeah. But, of course, being Marvel, there still are after-credits scenes. And I'll talk about the one that's after the credits first, because the first after-credits scene we have is at the shawarma shop, as we see the Avengers actually just kind of sitting around, and just them kind of taking a break from all this weird stuff, as they're just sitting around, eating shawarma, and just kind of relaxing. But the second credit scene is when we get during the credits, and actually has some big plot significance, as we see the leader of the Chitauri talking to their boss, saying that they were misinformed, that Earth would be easy pickings, but yet the people there fought back. They're pretty much that they can't go there. It's suicide, and that to go there would be to court death itself. And so, as the Chitauri sees this, we see the back of his boss, and the scene ends as we learn who was that one pulling the Chitauri, who was the one really pulling the Chitauri strings. As we see that their boss and the one who put Loki up to this was indeed the Mad Titan Thanos, and that shall be resolved in a much later movie. So, yeah. Apologies in advance for lack of quality on this vlog, for this specific vlog. Again, tired. So, hold on one more second. But anyway, so, well, thoughts. Honestly, this film still kicks ass. Its kill kicks so much ass. Like, it is still a very fun movie that I think was built up, that I think was well worth the wait that we got for all the years it was being built up. Like, seeing all these like, I think the first thing to start off with is, seeing all these characters come together for this, I think is just really cool. And the thing is, these characters have already been established in their own solo films. So now to see them all coming together here, I think it actually makes it really fun. The only one that doesn't really have that is Bruce, and that's because Edward Norton has been replaced with Mark Ruffalo, but it's made up for it by the fact that Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner, unlike Edward Norton, actually has a personality. Like, one of the complaints I had from The Incredible Hulk was that Edward Norton's Bruce Banner was just kind of bland. You did sympathize him enough to care about him, but only in a more human sense. As a character, he was bland and didn't really have much to him. But Mark Ruffalo, on the other hand, does have something coming to him. He's neurotic, a little on edge, kind of geeky and a dork. He's definitely smart, but he seems very tired. And as Haley put it, this is definitely a guy that you feel like this guy would be like if he's been on the run for so long, because he is tired, he's neurotic, he's on edge. And with the government constantly on your back, of course you'd be kind of like this. You'd be more paranoid. You'd be constantly trying to try and watch your back. And he plays him rather well, really playing as the neurotic weirdo that really is a nice stark contrast to when he actually hulks out. And it's actually, and I think it is really cool, and it's nice seeing that in action in the film. So I think it actually is a nice little, I think Mark Ruffalo is a good replacement to Edward Norton. And on top of that, I think that we have plenty of nice character moments that continue on in the films that I think are really nice. Like, we obviously got Tony and Pepper, for starters, but another strength we have is actually having Thor and Loki, having more continuation from them, as we see Thor trying to appeal to Loki's good side, which he thinks is there, and Loki, of course, denying that such a side exists. We get some nice character stuff between Tony and Bruce as they talk with each other, and Tony trying to convince Bruce that the Hulk is a blessing, not a curse, and we actually do get some nice, good tension and character moments as we see the groups actually clashing in a way that I think feels natural. Like, Haley points out, for example, Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. A difference between them both is kind of how they both approach their ideologies. For Tony Stark, he looks at everything. He looks at the people involved, the big picture, the little picture, just kind of wraps it all together and sees it all. While Steve is trained like a soldier, which is what he is. He sees the big picture and kind of looks at everything in the way another soldier would be, like following orders and doing what's right, etc. He looks at the big picture and knows that and feels like there are sacrifices that need to be made here and there, though. At the same time, and says, "What are you gonna do?" Like, there's enough in common for them to in the end unite, but there's enough there that there is an obvious clash. As Steve looks at Tony and sees a guy that's just kind of selfish and who kind of gets a kick out of this, while Tony looks at Steve and sees a self-righteous jerk whose only real specialty is that he was just given a special juice that made him strong. So yeah, he felt that is just. So there is enough of a clash, but it is ultimately triumphant when you see them actually, in times of crisis, actually seeing them coordinate and work with each other. Because up until the helicarrier got destroyed, they were at each other's necks, and then suddenly when not when it's destroyed, but when one of the when one of the turbines goes out, immediately the hostility between them is gone, and Tony Tony and Cap tells Tony, "You might want to get your suit for this," and they both start immediately coordinating on ways to try and stop this so that nobody gets hurt in the process. And it's really good and well done, and I like it. It's just so cool actually seeing them coordinate, work off each other. And on top of that, as part of the tension, I again go back to Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, you kind of definitely also feel more sorry for this one than Edward Norton, because again, blandness, you didn't feel as sorry for him because he felt like a spy thriller one. But okay, you did feel sorry for him because of the government stuff. But again, I think it makes it better is that you actually see more of his turmoil with the Hulk in him. At one point when Black Widow confronted him about him being on Loki's payroll, about Loki unleashing the Hulk, they say that they've set up. Nick Fury just says that they set up parameters that in case that ever happens, and Bruce says, "Well, by putting a bullet in me," and he reveals that apparently that's not going to work. As there was one point where he did get that low, where he did decide that he was just going to shoot himself and end it all, and then when he pulled the trigger, the Hulk spit the bullet right out. So yeah, even if he wanted to die, it's impossible. He's pretty much stuck. And it's really not. And it eventually just kind of helps raise the tension, especially when you learn that Loki is trying to destroy them and is using all this tension to try and get them out, to try and distract them from the real threats that he's organizing. And I think it's really well done that way, and I think it's got some good pacing. And again, there's another strength of the film: Loki. As a villain, he is still smart. He's still threatening. He's still sympathetic, because carrying over the stuff from the Thor, and he's a bit more quotable. And I think another strength about him, he's Wooby. He's Wooby, the destroyer of worlds in this movie. Like, he has several moments where he tries to be intimidating and powerful, and in some cases he succeeds, but then something knocks him off his pedestal. Like, it first starts out small, like in Germany, where he intimidates a crowd of people into bowing, and then the old German guy steps up and says, "No, we're not bowing to men like you." Men like you. That, of course, leads to him trying to silence him, typical villain fare. But then things just get even more so as we see him thinking he's got Black Widow on the ropes, when really she's just playing him to get information on what his plan is, or when he's trying, or even after killing Coulson, or even after stabbing Coulson still blasts him when he gets close enough, or then when he tries intimidating the Hulk, or just when he tries intimidating the Hulk and the Hulk just smacks him around. Like, it's just really nice and kind of funny. Like, because he is definitely intimidating. He definitely has that air. You definitely get that suave, arrogant, posh, I'm so full of myself kind of air to him. He definitely kind of fits the mischief vibe that you would get from Loki. It's just that he is such a weenie in other areas. Like, he has the capabilities of being strong, but he also has failings that ultimately bite him in the ass. And it's actually done in all the right ways, that not only is he a cool villain, but he's funny to watch because of it. And I think it's really nice. And the Chitauri, at the end of the day, are really just kind of the mook squad that he used to try and take over the Earth, a cause to unite the Avengers for. But again, Loki's at the forefront, so he's the one that gets all the attention. And I'm not even going to talk about Thanos, because he's not even a major villain in this one. He's the one that controlled the Chitauri, but as an active force, we don't see much of him till later films, so that's going to be a thing. But with that being said, though, there is still, and of course, we still got our cool action. We see the various action of, like, first, we obviously got some big, cool special effects, like the climax, of course. But because this film is a crossover, we also get some more cool we also get to see more of the individual fighting styles of each type of hero come together. Like, we got the hand-to-hand combat that we get with Black Widow and Captain America, is what they're doing. We get some long-range archery with Hawkeye as we see him in action. We see Iron Man and him flying around using his technology to fight. We see the godlike strength of Thor as he goes out, to just the all-around incredible power of the Hulk as he just smashes everything. And all of it comes together in a brilliant, beautiful setting that I can't help but love, and it is so bleeping cool. And I suppose another thing with this film is that it also does continue on plot lines. I already mentioned Loki and Thor, but we also get more character development for Black Widow. Like, here we learn that her name isn't Natalie, it's Natasha. Apparently she's Russian, though you could have fooled me. Apparently, as when we learn about her history with Hawkeye, we actually see her kind of have a connection with someone. That's part of the reason why she's going after Thor is because she wants to save her friend, even though she won't say friend, because yeah, that kind of the fact if she acknowledged she had feelings, that means she's kind of compromised. I feel like, well, this is cool. I will openly admit it does have a slight flaw in that it kind of throws Hawkeye under the bus, as before this film, he had no character. The only time he ever saw him was in Thor, and that was like for one cameo. After that, he wasn't seen again until this film, and for most of the film, he was the villain's lackey. We don't get much about Cal. We don't actually get a lot of Hawkeye. He's just meant to be there to help Black Widow's backstory, and that is a flaw. He does get more backstory in later films, but for now, just he was the guy that brought Black Widow in. So yeah, and I suppose you could also have another flaw. Have another flaw be that again the Chitauri stuff, but and yeah, that could be acknowledged as a flaw. Along and if you look hard enough, you can find other problems too. Like for example, why didn't the Avengers alert local authorities or Shield where Loki was most likely going to strike? Because that could have saved a lot of lives if they just evacuated. That would have been easier to do, but they didn't. So yeah, that's stuff to think about. But I think the rest of the film just makes up for it way too well within that. So I feel like the rest of it kind of makes up for it in a way. Like it's got some really cool action set pieces. The characters, while the characters do have their own development, but because you know these characters from previous films, it allows you to kind of get used to them more. All the acting, all the acting in the main cast is great. And the twists of the story I think are really nice. With Loki's still a pretty good villain. I like the oncoming threat, seeing it all just kind of come stacking up larger and larger to the point where we get this army. I love kind of and I love just kind of the I love the characters, love the acting, love the action. I think the story is nice, and while there are some minor flaws here and there, at the end of the day, Avengers I think is still to this day a really fun kick-ass movie. Later films, I think, would kind of dethrone it in the level of awesomeness as they did have to keep stacking it up higher and higher for our later stuff. But for what we got here, it's still a really fun movie that pays off, I think, very well for all the build-up it had over the years, and at the end of the day, is still a really good movie. So, yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching. Sorry that if I was a lot more out of it in this vlog than I normally am. Again, late, and I kind of wanted to do this with partners, so that didn't go well. But hopefully next week we'll be better off, as next time we meet, we're going to be entering Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as you take a look at the final film in the Iron Man trilogy with, well, Iron Man 3. So, I'll see you then, everybody. Take care.